Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Vietnam. I actually live in Vietnam, and so I spent a lot of my last 20 years here in Vietnam. So I guess I could say I'm a bit of an expert. I know quite a bit about Vietnam. So I want to talk a little bit about Vietnam, a little bit about its culture and its history. A lot of people don't understand this, but this is one of the first things you need to understand about Vietnam is that for many years, Vietnam was always dominated by a foreign power. In fact, the Chinese ruled Vietnam for 1,000 years, especially in the north. When you come to North Vietnam, you can see on many of the older buildings some Chinese characters. Even on buildings itself, there may be some Chinese characters on there. And then the French, of course, came in and dominated Vietnam for 100 years or so. And then the Vietnamese fought a very bloody war against the Americans, which they call the American War here, which we in America call the Vietnam War. And, for them to be able to have their freedoms. For a long time, Vietnam was closed off to the world. And I think it was basically in the late 1990s that Vietnam started opening up more. So it's a country that was relatively closed off for a while and then started opening up more. So if you understand that basis from Vietnam, it helps you understand a lot about Vietnam and the Vietnamese mindset and even the Vietnamese pride that they have today in being Vietnamese. Vietnam is a language that is unique. It's been enriched by the Chinese, by the French, and by English influences. So, just because somebody speaks Chinese or speaks Chinese dialects doesn't mean they can understand Vietnamese and vice versa. The two languages are actually very, very different. They have a blend of Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, which are known as the three teachings in Vietnam. But they also have an influence of, some of the French brought in, of course, Catholicism, Christianity, and other things like that into Vietnam and the Vietnamese society. Art and music, it's quite elegant and simple. If you ever get a chance to come to Vietnam, come to Hanoi. If the Opera House has the bamboo instruments, I highly recommend you go hear the bamboo instruments. It's fascinating to hear them if you can ever be able to hear a performance of their bamboo instruments. Traditional and contemporary Vietnamese music has a wide range of styles. They've embraced some of the Western type of music. So you can really find a wide variety of a lot of things here. The cuisine is probably the favorite part that a lot of people love about Vietnam. I honestly like Vietnamese cuisine. Vietnamese cuisine has a really great balance of flavors and healthy ingredients. It has, their food really is a lot with fresh herbs, but yet it has meat and yet it's a sweet and sour sort of taste. I lived in Thailand for a long time, and I'm also a great fan of Thai food, but sometimes Thai food has such spices you can hardly taste the food at all. Vietnamese food is not like that. It's sort of got this very sort of unique balance between the sweet and the sour, and it's actually there's vegetables and herbs are very much a part of most Vietnamese dishes. The favorite foods, of course, is pho, which is the Vietnamese soup. The banh mi, which is sort of their sandwich that they have. The bún cha, which is grilled pork with noodles. But my favorite, of course, is bún bò nambo, which is basically it's beef with peanuts and noodles and herbs in a sauce. To travel through Vietnam is really quite a wonderful thing to do. And I know it's been a popular place for many people to travel. I recommend, you start in the north. You definitely have to see Hanoi. Hanoi has a lot of wonderful things. They've got the old quarters with the narrow streets, the bustling traffic. You have the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, the Temple of Literature. Of course, not too far from Hanoi is Ha Long Bay, which is considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which has the beautiful emerald waters and the mountains that come out of the ocean. And you also have Sapa, which is breathtaking, which has all the hill tribes. Central Vietnam is also wonderful. The ancient town of Hoi An is also another UNESCO World Heritage Site. Beautiful beaches down there. That's actually where in Da Nang areas, where those of you that might be fans from the American War or the Vietnam War, that's what they call China Beach. But, Hoi An is a great city. So is Hue. And you also have things like the Marble Mountain near Da Nang. And you have the beaches of Da Nang and Nha Trang, which are fabulous beaches. In South Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City is a vibrant place. It's a truly a vibrant city to be in. They've got the Notre Dame Cathedral there, the Central Post Office. They have markets down there, and of course, right outside of the city is the Chichu Tunnels, which is fascinating to see, or the Mekong Delta. There's also many islands in the south where you can go if you really love like the beach and you want to spend some time on an island like Phu Quoc, which is a beautiful island area there in the south. So, Vietnam, whether you whether you want to do the history like of Hanoi and you want to see all the historical parts of Vietnam, or you want to be able to see the more cultural parts, there's something here for everybody. If you want to go on a food tour, you can go on a food tour. You want to bicycle around, you want to hike, you want to go into some of the many caves that Vietnam has, you can do all of that here. And I think that's one of the things that makes Vietnam so appealing to so many people is there's so much that you can do here within Vietnam itself. Whatever is your interest, I can guarantee that you'll be able to find it here in Vietnam, whether it's history, whether it's beaches, whether it's food, whatever it is, you will be able to find it here on your journey through Vietnam. So I think it's really essential to really understand how Vietnam, is really very much, though a country, to understand its culture, that it's a country that really had a lot of foreign domination for many, many years. So the Vietnamese themselves are very proud to be Vietnamese, and they outright should be proud to be Vietnamese because Vietnam is a wonderful country. This is Anita from Dusty Roads Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about our podcast or you'd like to be able to read, we've written a blog called Vietnam: A Journey Through History, Culture, and Travel. You can read that blog and be able to discover more. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you'll subscribe and be part of our community. Thank you.